Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Here we are today and still no plan for Brexit, no definition even for Brexit, to echo the words of the previous speaker, Finlay Carson. Let me just address his most recent topic and say in 1968 I was the salmon water bailiff for the Tay Salmon Fisheries Board, and as a minister I had the great privilege of having dinner with the Fisheries Board in his constituency, who at that time, I'm uncertain it was 2008 or 2009, reported as a result of environmental improvements under the previous Labour-Liberal administration and continued under this government, the number of wild fish in the Nith had quadrupled. So I'm slightly at odds with what I'm hearing now, but of course it may all have gone the wrong direction since then, but I rather suspect not. As others have done, let me declare I am the species champion, and I think someone with a sense of humour offered me this particular one for the European spiny lobster. I want to just address a couple of things that have come up in the debate so far. Nigel Farage, not the most reliable of sources for political facts, I accept, during the recent referendum campaign, quoted from research done by Business for Britain, that the UK and the EU Council of Ministers have been overruled on 55 occasions. My research actually shows that's entirely wrong. It was 56 occasions. But to give some context to that, there were 2,466 decisions. So therefore, the number of occasions on which the UK failed to get its own way was just over 1% of the time. So the UK has not chosen to reject the overwhelming majority of laws and regulations that have come via the EU Council of Ministers. And I think in the debate that we have, it's always as well to base some of what we say on facts. Now, I'm not going to claim that the UK said that all those that it supported were perfect in every detail. There's always compromise in these matters. I must say, as the Minister who took our Climate Change Act through Parliament, and you'll be delighted to know that I think I've got 6 or so minutes today, I had 2 hours 25 minutes to speak on the subject at stage 3 in 2009, and the Queen graciously provided royal assent for the Act on my ruby wedding anniversary on the 1st of August 2009, to my wife's immense delight. And I apologise unreservedly to Parliament for this government failing to meet its targets. We promised that the reduction for 2020 would be delivered in 2020, and I unreservedly apologise for our delivering it in 2014. I similarly unreservedly apologise to Parliament that the Scottish Government is so far ahead on its renewable energy targets, beating out of the park all the targets that were set. Our failures are to be gloried in, not to be derided. I certainly will.
Mark Ruskell.
I recognise the government's strong record on electricity, given difficult times, given subsidy cuts, but is it not the case that we're probably going to miss our 2020 target on heat?
Stewart Stevenson.
I'm not here to defend everything the government has or has not done, and I accept that in the panoply... Oh, no. I'm entirely happy to say that we set ourselves collectively and unanimously in 2009 a challenging set of targets across a range of areas, and heat was one of the more challenging ones where there's clearly more work to be done. Let me absolutely say that. I want to pick up a couple of other things, Presiding Officer. I direct Maurice Golden to Schedule 5, Section E1 of the 1998 Scotland Act, which relates to transport. I can find that we have no power whatsoever to legislate in relation to electric cars. We can provide electric charging points, we can subsidise councils and campaigns to encourage, but we have no powers whatsoever over electric cars. Presiding Officer, I will if it's brief, please.
Liam MacArthur.
I am terribly grateful to Stewart Stevenson. In relation to electric vehicles, would he accept that there is a great deal more to be done, not just in terms of the installation of the infrastructure, but actually its maintenance, which is proving a real problem for a lot of EV users across Scotland?
Stewart Stevenson.
I'm not personally aware of that, but I don't attempt to rebut it. I have myself now got a little hybrid car, which is just terrific. And it's 5 years old and it's doing sometimes 100 miles per gallon, which I just absolutely love. And of course, that illustrates a very important point about addressing environmental issues. I'm not just benefiting the climate, my wallet's getting a wee handout as well. And that's often the case that the Tories fail to recognise. Looking at what the substitution the Tories want to put in the motion today recognises the positive impact being part of the UK has made on climate change. I await news of what that might be. I recognise absolutely the negative impacts of the interference with renewable support that have come from the UK government. That's not been a helpful place to be for a single second. Presiding officer, the environment is, of course, not simply the purview of a single legislature, a single state, but is, in fact, an international issue, one that affects people across Europe and the world beyond that. That's why it's vital that we continue to have the kind of focus that the EU has encouraged us to have and has led the way for countries across our continent. That's why we need to continue to adhere to the highest possible standards. We mustn't sign up to the Tories' intention to disconnect the peoples of the nations of the UK from international agreements that support the environment, that world which we will bequeath to the next generation who follow us. Presiding officer.